Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Of course, I couldn't find my unmute myself button. But the Calgary Flames, more functional than my streaming setup. They get a win over the Buffalo Sabres. Final score 6-2. Anand, I think we just need to start doing videos together. Like, we need to just clear our schedules, because every time we do this stream together, the Flames put together some of their best performances, and I think this might have been the Flames' best game all year.
Yeah, maybe I think maybe not the second period wasn't the beauty, but first and third, sure, why not?
Yeah, a team that can't play for a full 60-minute game, they, as you said, don't have as effective as a second as you'd want if you're the Flames coaching staff. But, you know, you can't argue with putting 2 points on the good old standings page, especially against a team that has been beating everyone, including that team from up north. As you said when we were talking previous to the stream, not everyone can beat the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, the Edmonton Oilers got destroyed by the Buffalo Sabres by a score of about 5-1. And we do it tonight in some successful fashion method, 6-2. So Buffalo Sabres is not for everyone. At least for the Flames it is.
Yeah, and like, I pulled up the Sabres' recent record because, they've been one of the hotter teams in the NHL for stretches this season. As you mentioned, being on the other side of a beatdown against the Oilers, 5-1, pulling out a win in overtime against the Red Wings, who, again, another one of the hotter teams in the NHL, losing to the Avs. Like, this is a team this isn't the Sabres of 3 to 4 years ago where they couldn't beat a wet paper bag in any form of hockey, but this is a plucky team that we're finally starting to see what Owen Powers is going to be as an NHL player. Tage Thompson, as they said on the broadcast, where Tage Thompson succeeds, this Sabres team succeed, and the Flames took this game to them.
Yeah, 100% Buffalo Sabres reeling in that. I think I heard on the broadcast as well, 14-year playoff drought. And I think with the looks of it, they kind of are gelling back. But once again, when you look at today's game, do you think they have it in their power? We don't know. But it's just a one sample size game. We have seen them beating other good teams as well. So we'll see what kind of power they have within them moving forward.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the game as we go on, but just want to say thank you to everyone who is showing up today. I see a friend of both of ours, Jack Rosa, in the chat. Jack, you need to talk to me. We'll talk later about some U18 Oilers stuff, because I know that they've got some big tournament coming up in about a month, just over a month. But yeah, shout out to Jack Rosa, play-by-play for the U18 Beaumark Oilers. I think they're still the Beaumark Oilers. Shout out to him in chat, Toke, the Denim Man, Christine Merrill, Matt C. Thank you so much for joining. Because I'm going to say this before we forget. If you're liking this stream, or you think you're going to like this stream, go hit that like button and try and share the message. We just got kind of had a talk with some people in the know, and we need to start hitting those buttons to start getting this video out to some more people. Get some more people joining in the chat. KQ, haven't seen you in a minute. Thanks for joining back in the chat. But it's always so much easier when the Flames win one of these things to encourage people to say, I like this. I like when this team does that. So we'll head into our recap now. And a guy that's had a good string of the last couple of games, finally getting back on the score sheet last game, opens the scoring. Rasmus Andersson, he pinches in from the point after a good shot from Kevin Ball, apparently tipped by Igor Sharangovich, who, and you might have to apologize to him later on in the broadcast, they're giving Sharangovich the primary assist, saying that he was the one who got it out to Rasmus Andersson rather than it being a pure rebound. Andersson finds the back of the net, finds the pair of Sabres fans sitting behind the net, stares them down. Flames up 1-0.
Yeah, 100%. Rasmus Sanderson, I think, especially offensively, he is playing great as of late, taking those shots, taking those chances, which I know he was afraid of last season and many years ago. And him taking those shots, really appreciated. Especially, you need the team to contribute when they're struggling to score. And if you get one or two that Rasmus Anderson stare and he looks at the fans, maybe that gets the team going. And I think that was one of the opportunity tonight that opened the scoring. And he did last game too against the Chicago Blackhawks, which was fun to see. So maybe a thing in the right direction for him, especially his trade being inevitable.
Inevitable.
uh, yeah, words are hard to come by, but yeah, especially him being talked as a trade chip. If he want his value to go up, I think these are the right games to look at.
Yeah, and the player that kind of started this whole play is somebody that I, in my last stream, really said needs to start playing better. And I think this was the start of what might have been Nazem Kadri's best game where he wasn't celebrating playing 1,000 for the Flames this year. Doesn't get an assist on this play, and in fact, I think he only ended up with 1 assist on the... two assists on the night, but the energy that Nazem Kadri had tonight, I think brought other people into this fight for this Calgary Flames, and that's something the Flames haven't had very often this season, is guys that want to get into the fight, want to get engaged, and I think Naz kind of dragged this new look's first line into the battle early, and that kind of, I think, did end up trickling down, unlike trickle-down economics. It did actually flow some energy into this Calgary Flames squad today.
Yeah, 100%. Kadri is kind of that firepower that brings you excitement, energy. So if you have him contributing, moving all throughout the ice, I think that brings that excitement in. He can be a certain driver for the Flames team, and I think we saw that tonight.
Yeah, we certainly saw it on the second goal, where it was that Sharangovich, Kadri, Farabee connection coming in again, as it was Kadri breaking into the zone, drops off to Sharangovich. Sharangovich plays it back down to Kadri, making himself available once again, and then Joel Farabee, the native of around Buffalo, New York, tapped that one home, and just great play from all three forwards. You also saw Rasmus Andersson starting to pinch in off the point again to say, I can be an option as well, but Joel Farabee just put it between the legs of Ellis and starting to pick up some momentum as the lines, as I think it was Matt C said, that Huska has finally got the top two lines right, and hard to argue with the two results in that first period from the Flames.
Yeah, certainly. I think, especially if you play in your hometown team, like nearby, then it gives you that added motivation. I think his Farabee's brother's hockey team that he coaches was in attendance. His family was attendance, so that gives you that extra one motivation to play an excellent game. And Farabee did have an excellent game tonight. I don't know. There are a few factors in this game. I feel like I want to point out specifically why this win happened. But again, if you have the Kadri Farabee Sharangovich line driving in, I think you're in for an excellent game, especially like you mentioned, Conrad Kadri.
Yeah, but then came the second period. But before we get to that, I do want to tell you shots, because those do matter in a game like this. The Flames 11 to the Buffalo Sabres 5. Definitely not a high event first period, but the Flames managed to take advantage. Then we had to the period that the Flames didn't seem to be very engaged in. Obviously, it's hard to play 120 minutes in under 48 hours. As they said, the Flames only arrived in Buffalo at around 2 a.m. this morning after their flight in from Chicago. Because Chicago and like New York, or in upstate New York, aren't necessarily all that close. And even with the chartered plane, I'm sure there's only a certain number of times you can get in to those busy airports in the New York area. But yeah, the Flames kind of fall off in the second period. A beautiful shot, actually, from Matthias Samuelsson. Ends up beating the Flames as Uyghur and Jan Kuznetsov both kind of drawn down into that half-board area. Ends up in a turnover when Kadri can't collect the pass, and Samuelsson steps off the boards and wires one past Cooley. And I started to feel like, oh no, is this where the Flames wagon starts to fall apart? I actually messaged you that in our little private chat, and I'm just like, oh no, is this where the Flames blow another lead?
Yeah, I mean, but before that, Conrad, I think we missed one play where that goaltender interference call. I
We did
think,
in the first period, yeah.
yeah, I think if that didn't have gone our way, like they called the goal back, and if that didn't go on our way, could have certainly taken, because it's the second game in a row now. You take a coach's challenge, and if it didn't go your way, it would have changed the dynamics. But thankfully, then we end up seeing the Samuelson goal, which they couldn't clear out of the zone. Jan Kuznetsov got pushed onto the boards, and then Kadri couldn't clear it either. And then what a shot, that rocket of a shot that got past Cooley. And yeah, I thought, yeah, are we going to see one of these games again?
Yeah, the story also often remains the same with this Calgary Flames squad. But yeah, talking about that goaltender review. I actually reached out to Matt DeMille after the Flames challenged, because this is the second game in a row since I mentioned it here on Game Over that the Flames weren't challenging. Like whether the Jamie Pringle magic had gone away, because it was a major part of last year was how successful the Flames were with that video review. And then obviously the one fails last night. I actually thought that one was closer to goal interference than this one was today. Yet again, proving that video review in this league is a joke. But I guess all fans kind of feel that way. I've actually been went down the rabbit hole on TikTok of watching cricketers reacting to reviews, because their review system is even weirder than the NHL's one is. Yeah, but anyways, Flames win the review, and then they have this goal and one we're about to talk about. If it had gone to a 3-2 game, I think we're talking about a completely different Flames team, because resiliency has not been their forte this year. But yeah, we'll go into the second of the two goals. Tage Thompson, as he's been moved back to center this year. I don't understand fully what this Sabres coaching staff is doing with the development of this Tage Thompson, but he kind of finds his spot, fills in at the point, and absolutely wired that puck. Assist to Samuelsson and Rasmus Dahlin, who is finally turning into the NHLer I think that the Sabres were getting when they drafted him. But a rocket from Thompson. They threw a couple of legs, threw a couple of bodies, beats Cooley. Tie game at 2.
Yeah, that's when Coleman takes an unnecessary holding penalty too, and you see the momentum shift entirely. And I thought, once they tried it, yeah, game done, good night, see you later. But eventually the Flames will prove it wrong. One thing I heard about Tage Thompson, though I don't know where I heard it specifically to specifically cite the source, but he loves playing on the wing. But apparently somehow the coaching staff sees him in center, and they have liked it more, and he has produced more at center. So yeah, interesting choice that they are doing that. So
Lindy Ruff has forgotten more about the game of hockey than I think most people have ever known about the sport. So I'm not going to argue with Lindy Ruff saying you're a center, and I don't think you're going to argue if you're a 10 goal scorer 20 games through the season. If Tage Thompson can stay healthy, which has been a problem for this player throughout his young NHL career, that puts you on a 40-goal pace, so I don't think Tage is going to be all that upset with those results. Assist to Samuelsson and Dahlin, as I said. And you have to wonder what was said in the Flames locker room after the first 40 minutes, because the Flames somehow managed to reignite the spark going into the third period. I guess I can't wait for what's the video show called that they produce? The Chase. Can't wait for the episode of The Chase to come out about this one, because You have to wonder if it was somebody like Devin Cooley saying, I'm playing my ass off. Can we please get me a win for the first time in this season? And obviously the Flames answered, and it starts with a good shift for that new reinvigorated Coronado, Huberdeau, and Frost line. I actually thought this play was offside, and I'm surprised Buffalo didn't challenge. I thought Matt Coronado entered offside. No challenge coming for another New York native. And a great pass from Jonathan Huberdeau, putting it right on the blade for Morgan Frost. And for one of the unluckiest Calgary Flames players, I actually kind of expected this one to end up somehow in the protective netting around the ice rather than in the net. But Morgan Frost finds his fourth of the season, and I think that was as close to we've seen as vintage Huberdeau as we can say we've had the opportunity to as this season.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a bit of vintage Huberdeau when he came back from the injury, but then he started to quiet down a little bit. But again, I think he got back in it again tonight, which is good to see. And then Morgan Frost, who has been snake bitten for most of the season, getting that goal much needed for him. And then Coronado as well. I liked his game too tonight. So keep that line consistent. Keep the Sharangovich, Kadri Farabee line consistent. Um, I
Turn
know
up.
this is just one sample size game for Buffalo, but we'll see what happens for rest of the.
So, Anand, are you saying we need to turn off Chat GPT for generating our lines? Okay, that just had to put that one out there.
You know, Conrad, I created lines on yesterday's broadcast without using ChatGPT, just so you know.
Well, it seems that's our coaching staff's motto, so we'll see. We'll see how long these lines stay together, but after a 6-2 finish, you have to think this might be our lines for a little bit. And then the third line decides to get in on the action, or however you want to number these lines. I'm putting Michael Backlund at third line. You're not going to stop me. Michael Backlund, the captain, gets involved. Assist from Rasmus Andersson, and I'm kind of shocked that they didn't give Blake Coleman an assist as well. Good hard work from Coles, knocking it out of midair below his shoulders. Gets the puck over in the direction of Rasmus Andersson. Andersson, they're calling it a pass, not a shot and a redirect. But Michael Backlund finds it in the slot and fires it home. I've been very critical of Michael Backlund this season. I don't think anyone is shocked to hear me admit to that. But good for Bax to get on the score sheet and kind of lift some of the pressure I'm sure he feels signing that new contract extension. Likely meaning he's going to retire as a Flame, knock on wood. But good for Captain to finally get on the score sheet.
Yeah, 100% great. Once again, Rasmus Andersson was awesome getting the pass through to Michael Backlund and shooting that in. Even through traffic, there was traffic in front of the net. And and that point when Backlund scored, a bit of relief for the team. And then I asked you, Conrad, 4 goals in this economy. Yeah, we are watching that.
Yeah, it's not very often that we've seen that this year. So just a turn in the right direction, maybe. Who knows? And then Joel Farabee, his second of the game, his fourth of the season. Just a good hustle play from number 86. He gets by, makes no mistake on the breakaway, beating a waiver wire collection goalie. But, got to be lucky to be good and good to be lucky. And this wasn't even the luckiest goal the Flames scored today. But good job by Rasmus Andersson. It almost reminds me of soccer plays where you just put the through ball and have your striker run onto it. As we've seen with Ali Musi here in Calgary with Cavalry. Yeah, just a similar play. Just put it into the open space and say, go get it, Joel, and worked out there. And Andersson and Kadri, as we said, probably their best games of the season thus far.
Yeah, that especially on that Farabee goal, the floodgates opened. There was a huge space for Farabee to skate through. I was expecting the goaltender to make a save on that, but beats him through. And at that point, I wrote on my notepad, "Is Buffalo this bad?" It makes you wonder. But yeah, I think, like I said, Conrad, maybe a right turn in that direction, but we'll see. We get the Stars on Saturday, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, we aren't quite at that point because we have to talk about the luckiest goal that Matt Coronado will have in his hockey career. Morgan Frost enters the zone. Jonathan Huberdeau sauces it over to Matt Coronado. And Matt Coronado, this isn't a game of football. You don't have to score 3 points by putting it over the crossbar. But somehow it floats its way back, bounces off the skate for the goaltender Ellis. And I don't think he'll be recounting those tales to his grandkids in the future, but it counts. It's the 6th goal in a 6-2. I don't want to call it a rout, but a very good, as I said, 40 minutes of play from the Calgary Flames, capped off by a goal that's probably going to make the not top 10 of the year. So that's all you got for the Calgary Flames. They win at 6-2. They did lose the shot battle in the second. Didn't mention that. They lost that 12-10. But took the shot lead in the third, 14-13. They lead in that category 35-30. They also win in the face-off dot. I know 2 games ago it was perfectly 50-50 right down the middle off of all the face-offs. Flames barely managed to squeak by 32 face-offs won compared to 28 for the Sabres. Neither team score with a man advantage. The Flames go 3 for 3 on the penalty kill. Hits were even. Block shots favored Buffalo. Flames were in the offensive zone more of the game. Block shots going to skew that way. However, when you have the puck more, you think you would lead in the giveaways department just because you have the puck to give away more. The Sabres gave the puck away 17 times, and the Flames also led in takeaways. So the Flames, I think, will take that one. If you average it out with the poor performance they had in Chicago, maybe you win 1 out of 2 if they're both on average. So they come home 500 off of this weird little 2-game back-to-back road swing before coming back home to have a home or a 2 games in a row at home on the back-to-back.
Home and then away. Yeah.
Or is it a home and away? Do we go to? Go to Winnipeg. Home
on Saturday against Stars and then Sunday in Vancouver.
Why did I think it was? So that's the second time we go to Vancouver on the second half of a back-to-back with travel. Okay, we're gonna have a rant here before we go to period number 2. Denim Man put me onto this. This is the first year the NHL has used artificial intelligence to build out the NHL schedule. We need to get a new model. Like, if it was Grok that was building this, I don't know who built it. Please get us a new AI model so the Flames don't constantly have to have the back-to-backs with travel. Like, okay, if it's Edmonton, that's one thing. That's a 3-hour drive, maybe a 1-hour flight, and you're probably sleeping in your own bed. But for us to have our 2 games that we play against Vancouver as the second half of back-to-backs, that's unexcusable, regardless of it being an Olympic season. Just shocking.
I also expect, I know Winnipeg and one other team got a set of back-to-back at home, but can't you do that with the Flames? I wonder,
Yeah, you have New York and New York coming in. Like, why can't the Flames host the Rangers and then the Islanders on back-to-back days?
Yeah, I don't think we have gotten that into my recent memory. Even last season, I know every back-to-back has been one at home, one on the road. Why can't we have?
Why can't we have a baseball weekend? Like, where you play a night game on the Friday, and then you play a middle of the afternoon, a Hockey Night in Canada game on the Saturday, where you host both. It just doesn't make sense. And just reading a funny comment in chat, AI is the only thing that is forcing the rebuild, because, oh boy, we're going to talk about an interview that was given at the first intermission in a little bit, but let's head on to period number 2, if I can find the right button. There we go. Period number 2 of today's game. We are going to be talking about the newest member of your Calgary Flames, in the name of, I can't remember his first name because I am the worst, John Beecher. John Beecher, 12:47 played tonight. Obviously, he was one of the guys that was out on the penalty kill for the Flames, as that was one of the strengths and reasons that was given for claiming him off waivers. Don't think he was bad today. 17 shifts, keeping them short, obviously. 1 block shot, 2 shots, 1 hit, and got involved in protecting a teammate. I think this was an okay waiver claim for the Calgary Flames. Obviously, being in 32nd, you are the first person in line to make any of these claims. And I know there was a lot of chatter online talking about, why are the Flames claiming another bottom 6 forward? And my response to that was, we've seen this experiment for the Flames this year. Connor Zary has not been a good center at any point in his career. He's been held there at I talked to a friend, or to my dad, about this, where I felt he was almost held there at gunpoint, where you are going to be a center if you like it or not. Same with Igor Sharangovich. So claiming a guy who is primarily a center to fill that role, which obviously the Flames didn't feel Justin Kirkland could fill, I think that makes some modicum of sense from the roster construction. Obviously today he played in that 4th line left wing role, giving a certain Ryan Lomberg a day off. But I think that's more, you just want to give a guy who's just met you in Buffalo, give him a game where he doesn't have to understand defensive systems, being that F1 to go into some hockey coaching terms, where he has to be defensively responsible. Just say, here, you haven't had a practice with us. We're on the second half of a back-to-back. Just go play hockey. But this is a guy that likely is going to slot into that 3rd/4th line center, depending on where you play Michael Backlund for the rest of the season. I think this was an okay claim. What were your thoughts on the first beach game today?
Yeah, wasn't too sparkly, but I think that's a good thing. Like, you came into Buffalo not knowing the unknowns, how maybe the Flame systems work, and I think stepping up for Sam Morton and as well being put right on the penalty kill, I think shows some confidence that the coaching staff is giving him the credibility to trust him with the role. So I think I don't mind it. We'll see how the rest of the maybe 5 games in or 10 games in. Ask me how he has done. I know he's quiet on the scoring front generally, especially with the Boston Bruins. But if you have like a 6'3" tall guy who can stay gritty and fight for a teammate and be effective on the penalty kill, I'm all for it.
But holy, do the Flames now suddenly have a lot of size on that 4th line. Like, Justin Kirkland, not a small dude. I think he's 6'1", if my brain remembers correctly. But now you have to, if you're the line that comes out across from Adam Klapka and Beecher, like, that's gotta be intimidating. And like, imagine it's ball on the back end. Like, that's a solid at least 19 feet of human coming at you combined. So I guess we're going back to the truculence era. Ugh, that's even just saying that word made my made me quiver a little bit. But and I think you have to, if you know how they all have their custom goal songs for the Flames, you have to think it's Jake Owen's Beechin that has to be his goal song, right? Like, good country song, you're playing in Calgary now, gotta have some Jake Owen Beechin going on at Calgary Flames.
I've heard that specific song, so I'll add it to my list. You said Jake Owen.
Jake Owen Beechin. A good summer country song from back in 2013. I heard it a lot when I used to work at the Stampede.
Okay, I've added it to my list.
It's on your playlist. I hope it's adding to all of our friends' playlists in chat. Wait, is that okay? Before we head to period number 3, I just saw something that now just clicked into my head. The 32nd overall Calgary Flames now have more regulation wins than the Edmonton Oilers. I won't take, like, I'm full Team Tank, and I think there's a lot of people in chat that know that. But if we can somehow finish 32nd and watch Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Oilers finish 9th place in the West, like, that would just be the sweetest revenge. Like, yeah, we may be bad, but at least we're not what we have been for the last decade or longer, and we're stuck in the mucky middle. Never mind the fact that you have the two best players in the sport of hockey, or two of the best top 5 at the very least. That would be so sweet for us to just have that little thing over our neighbors to the north.
Yeah, they struggled tonight as well, bought a touchdown of goals against the Washington Capitals.
It was a football score. Like, that was what I expected to see in some of the CFL playoff games. Oh, Stuart Skinner with a .73 save percentage tonight. Remember when I was trying to trade off Dan Vladar last year around the trade deadline? Hey, Edmonton, do you want to lightly use Devin Cooley? Or, hey, we've got an Ivan Prosvetov who's in the minors. He can't be any worse than the two guys you have right now. Jeez. But let's head in to period number 3. We have to address some of the comments made by the president of hockey operations, Don Maloney, for the Calgary Flames today. Because boy, oh boy, that was a real awkward conversation for somebody who's making the decisions for this organization. I'm not going to quote word for word because nobody, I think, has actually put out a full transcript, but I'm quoting from Zenith Zalapsky, who's one of the better follows in the Flames hockey Twitter sphere. But here's some of what was said. You know what? People don't understand confidence. It's such a big part of this game. Okay, we'll take that for a sentence. I think Calgary Flames fans are smart enough to understand that. I think that if you're a educated Flames fan, you're not someone who just passively watches this team. You can look at the advanced stats and say, these Calgary Flames have gotten really unlucky in the first 20 games of the season. Puck luck has not been on their side. You saw that case in point in that Chicago game where the Flames probably should have been closer. But that doesn't change your results. Results will not completely change because your team has no confidence. So that's kind of insulting the intelligence of the average Flames fan, in my mind. You have to be careful with young players and bringing them up and putting them in places that they're just not ready for. We're seeing this in the fact that Yan Kuznetsov is here and has been one of the better Flames defenders. Is that just because he's 6'3" and has better reach than most of the guys that are coming down on him? Not entirely, but that's a young player who's done very well. Zane Barek was manning power play unit number 2, perfectly fine. Did he have to learn how to not take a hit when he's standing at the blue line? Yes. Did he need to learn the defensive aspect of the game? Yes, but he's 19. That time will come, whether with the Flames next year or whether he regresses a bit and has to go back down to the A. We're not going to talk about the CHL thing. We've had plenty of talks about that. We've seen Connor Zary, still considered a young player in my mind, maybe not in the leadership. He's struggled this year. Yeah, had a bit of a bounce back game today. I thought he was more noticeable than he's been in a while. The best player for the Calgary Flames over the last string of, I'll call it 6 games, has been Matt Coronado. Like, the young players aren't what's holding this team down. And I don't think I'm taking crazy pills to say that. Do you think so, Anand?
No, like, everybody will make mistakes. Everybody will be young. And I think the sport of hockey right now is all about being young. If you look at Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, you need young guys to have a successful hockey team. I think you're right on point mentioning these players, Zary, Coronado, Zemperek. Like, you need them to be somewhat competitive in hockey.
And we lost one of them in Ilya Solovyov because we can't manage our waivers. Like, we decide to keep Daniil Miramanov, who admittedly has been lighting up the AHL, and who knows, maybe someone else will say, we want that AHLer for our squad. Who knows? But like, this is a team that's mismanaged some of their youth, and still those guys we've mentioned are not guys we're saying make mistakes. Like today I saw Rasmus Anderson, or no, it was Mackenzie Weegar in the third period, hand over a couple absolute pizza deliveries in his own defensive zone. And that's a guy who last year was your best defenseman for vast stretches of the season. Okay, let's continue on with this statement from Maloney. We're not rushing these players. If we weren't rushing them, I think Zane Prek would still be in the OHL, but I digress. That's why I know everybody wants this rebuild a little quicker than retool, when he kind of stumbled over his words. No, okay, like, hold up, full stop. We are 32nd place in the league. This is a rebuild, not a retool. We aren't going to be the St. Louis Blues who went from in last place in the league to winning a Stanley Cup. That is not where this team is. We can celebrate today, but we all know that this team is what it is. Continuing on. To see young talented players, we're determined to just not throw young players in before they're ready. It doesn't work. It's no good for your culture. I'm pretty sure there are 2 fan bases right now that have something to say to you, sir. That being the San Jose Sharks. Their culture was, let's go have parties in our room last year. Let's go celebrate this young generational superstar and surround him with players to get him up to speed. Last year, it was awful watching the Sharks, but you had this guy, Macklin Celebrini, with Will Smith and former Flame Tyler Toffoli, and they were just fun to watch. Did they lose way too many games? Probably, but it didn't turn into the decade of darkness. Chicago Blackhawks fans, that was a miserable team to watch for the last 2 years. They had nobody who could score outside of their superstar. They had nobody playing defense, and they didn't have a goalie who could stop a beach ball. But now they've found out, hey, if we build around this generational superstar, we're going to probably propel him onto Team Canada. The leadership from the Flames need it. The leadership from the top is the problem with this team. Whether it is Murray Edwards and his alleged meddling, or whether it's old hockey guys who, shout out to Mike Gould, Don Maloney's been an executive for 35 years. You want to know how many Stanley Cup rings that man has on his fingers? This many. I've said this so many times this season. The ownership group for the Calgary Flames are incredibly smart people and incredibly smart in business. But at this point, the people they are hiring to advise them on a sport that they know nothing about. As much as I love Murray Edwards and the rest of the Flames ownership group, and hey, hire me. As much as I want that, they need to realize they're hiring the wrong people to steer the ship. Like, they need to look back to what built the success of the Flames that got into these playoff battles. That was believing in Chris Snow and the young group of people that were rebuilding and retooling how advanced analytics were used in this game. They need to realize that this old boys club is what founded the decades of darkness at Edmonton. Believing in the friends of the owner, believing that these people who have been in hockey forever know what hockey's about. Chris Snow led us to picking both Dustin Wolf and Johnny Gaudreau before anyone else saw what they were. May he rest in peace. This Flames team needs to get their heads out of their collective rear ends and remember what innovation brought them. And it brought them way more than 2 games of playoff revenue. They brought you a generation that believed in this team. But with that, go ahead, Anand.
Yeah, I don't know how we'll get to that. Hopefully, maybe a pipe dream comes true. One day I can meet Murray Edwards somehow and tell him that the direction you are choosing is not the right one, that the Flames are asking for something different. We want to be an actual contender maybe a few years down the road.
When you have that
So,
big, new, beautiful new building that's just a scrap work of steel right now, when you
yeah,
can have Gavin McKenna or any, well, I've heard the stock kind of falling on Gavin McKenna. I don't believe it. I think he's just a 18-year-old playing in a league of 23, 24-year-olds. Last year of COVID exemptions too.
yeah,
Like, I still think he's the number 1 pick with a bullet. But like, be bad now. Let us send off the Saddle Dome. Let us bleed red for that building for one last year, and then come in with a youth group starting to propel this team through the new building, just like the Oilers did with a young Connor McDavid.
yeah.
Be generationally bad for 1 year. Then get the superstar of the future, start to propel this team forward, give your fan base what they're rooting for. I don't know how many posts of Flames number 72 jerseys I've seen on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, social media of choice. But this Flames fan base is ready to move on, even if ownership isn't. And I see Matt C. We'll get to a lot of the comments in chat. So you guys have been brilliant in chat today. Thank you so much. But it's starting to be time, even if ownership doesn't see it. And you know what? Maybe Craig Conroy, everyone's pointing at, oh, he doesn't have a contract. Maybe the Craig Conroy factor is truly what's keeping this team where it is. But, celebrate the wins. And celebrate when the Flames have played a fantastic game like they did today. But recognize that
Especially when Devin Cooley needs a win.
Yeah, Devin Cooley gets his first win as a Flame. I guess we're kind of buried that lead a little bit. But, like, the guy's been stellar. And that was a guy that, to be fair, I wanted shipped out of town in Game 1. I was looking at goalies like the one we just faced that were on the waiver wire. But some smarter than me man in the front office probably said no. Or maybe, is the Flames goaltending coach still Jordan Sigalet?
No, Jason LaBarbe.
Barbs, right.
Yeah.
Barbs and his coaching staff that know way more about goaltending probably saw that the bases were covered. And you know what? Maybe that is the old my eye test's better than your numbers sort of debate. But it's game 22. Or is it 21? 22?
22 today.
Game 22. We're over a quarter of the way through the season. Just take our wins and hope that our front office can realize what this team is, how they played over their head last year, and that the fans who pay their bills at the end of the day, because this is a professional sport, this is still a business, are ready to build towards that new building with a new potential superstar. But we'll head in to period number 4, the overtime period, where Anand and I head back through chat to see what questions we have from our fans. Before I do that, I do want to shout out that we will be doing more streams of the Calgary Inclusive Hockey Association. If you haven't headed over to the Game Over channel, main channel, and checked out the last 5 minutes and the shootout of that game, please head on over. It was me doing commentary. I think maybe we'll get an Anand out there we can work it into his busy schedule. It's beer league. It's fun. we're
Yeah, I
starting
was
to.
going to ask you if I can come along with you one
Yeah,
day. I'll try to. Yeah.
we'll figure that out. But man, it's been a lot of fun to try to build out what this Game Over network is, what we can have it be, regardless if I have to drop way too much money on a capture card that didn't have that great of an effect. But anyways, it's been a lot of fun exploring what we can do with this network, and we hope to continue to play around. So please go check that out. Please drop comments. If you're listening to us tomorrow or any day future on your drive to work, please, when it's safe to do so, don't text and drive, but leave a comment. I've been trying to get back into the comments. I know we don't get very many, but leave a comment. We'll get to it. If it's not in the chat here, we'll get to it in time as we draw some of that. But let's head into overtime here as we look through the comments. I'll go back up a little bit.
I think the first one is for me, Conrad, so I'll
Go
hit
ahead.
that. I think I owe an apology to Sharangovich from Tokai number 1. Yeah, I was critical of Sharangovich yesterday. Like, he was not doing anything in Chicago, took a penalty. But today somehow decided to come with the most important couple of points he got. So apologies to Sharangovich, and yeah, apologize for criticizing you. I hope he just can keep this up. That's my ask for Sharangovich. If he can keep this up for the next few string of games, then people will be not as criticizing as I was, perhaps.
And I have to say this, I think this is finally one of the best places Igor Sharangovich has been to be successful with this team. He's not a bottom 6 guy. It's similar to, like, because he's a goal scorer. At the end of the day, that is what his skill set is. Expecting him to be on the 4th line and go lay the body, that isn't what Igor Sharangovich is best at. Did he do his best when he was thrust into that role? For sure. I don't think it was his most successful string as a Calgary Flame when he was on that 4th line with Lomberg and Klapka, but he played the role, did what he was asked. But yeah, back in the top 6, kind of where he needs to play. Didn't get really on the scoreboard tonight, but I think it was one of the better games he's managed this year.
And then Tokai number 1 towards the end, just kidding, you don't have to apologize to Sharangovich.
I think you had to. You're getting it from your co-host. The apology was needed. I'll go here to a comment from Matt C. It's about time we took advantage of a backup goalie. I said in an earlier episode this season, just play your backups against Calgary. It'll make them all look like they deserve a Vezina. Certainly wasn't the case today. Oh, finally. Matt C. Hey, boys, good game, eh? Jack, as we said, great to see you in chat. Hope Beaumark Oilers are treating you well out there. Matt C., we've never lost with Beecher in the team. He's truly the secret sauce, I guess. Battle for Gavin McKenna, and we decide to load manage Jake Bean. Yeah, I was kind of tilting my head back and forth on this one. As Denim Man can attest, when I saw that in the pre-game video that they had decided to go with the return of Joel Hanley to the lineup, I was cursing out loud, and it was not a pleasant sight seeing the number 44 for me. And he was okay today. Was he better than Jake Bean, who statistically was one of the better Flames over the last string of games? I don't think so. Maybe this was showcasing Jake Bean to the 16 NHL pro scouts that were at the game tonight. Who knows? If somebody wants a 36 or 34-year-old Jake Hanley to shore up their set. Joel. I was thinking, I've mixed up Jake Bean and Joel Hanley because they're that replaceable in my mind. But if somebody wants to take their shot and have Joel Hanley be your 7th defenseman going into the playoffs, he too can bowl through your goaltender and make you worry about their health. Love seeing Kadri taking on the leadership role. I think he always has that leadership role, whether he's successful in the stat column or not. But also, I think sometimes his leadership can actually be a little negative and kind of drag the team down with him if he isn't having his way. So seeing him have a good game was certainly a positive. Team tank all the way from Matt C. But once we're 2-0 up, I was invested in winning this one. Plus Cooley needed a W. Yep. Lots of love for Cooley today, and it was nice seeing him smile from under that goalie mask for once. Like, I haven't seen. I'm sure everyone needs to go check out his post-game press conference tomorrow, because you bet he'll probably have some good quotes on that one. But this is where I am going to pull a question out of Tokay, one of Tokay's comments. We have to ride this Cooley W streak. Do you think Cooley gets the first of the 2 games back here in Calgary and end this weekend?
That's an interesting question, because you want to give Devin Cooley the opportunity, of course. I don't know which one do you give though, because Stars are a tough team to play against. So maybe we see Bull start on the Saturday, and then maybe Devin Cooley again on the back-to-back in Vancouver. But I feel like I want them to start Devin Cooley at home too. So kind of mixed opinions on that.
Yeah, and then you have to think that the Flames won't make the same mistake, even if they do start Dustin Wolf against the Stars. They're not going to start him against Vancouver again. I certainly hope we've learned that's not the way to go, starting him on the both sides of the back-to-back. AI is the only thing that can force the rebuild. Matt C saying we'll lose the Vancouver game badly. I certainly hope not. Because we actually are going to have, probably, fingers crossed, we're still working out the final details. But it looks like we're going to have Nolan from Calgary Inclusive Hockey Association coming in and joining me on that stream. He's a big Canucks fan, so I know he's a guest, but I kind of want to rub a little salt in the wound. That's just who I am. Imagine we go on a run. Can we not? I like being the best odds for a very, very good hockey player. Gotta admit, it was brave of the Oilers to choose a goalie who is legally blind and paralyzed from the waist down to be their starter. Hey, as I said, they can have one lightly used Ivan Prosvetov for the next 2 years. KQ saying it was nice to hear us talking positively about Connor Zary. As I said, he wasn't one of the focal points of today's game, but he was okay and wasn't hanging his head on the bench like you sometimes have seen with him in the last week or two. This is a retool to him, meaning Don Maloney. What parts do we even have to retool? I don't know. Maybe Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost are kind of your 2 posts for that, being more of a retool than a full rebuild. I thought they looked very good today. And maybe somehow you don't get a good enough deal for Nazem Kadri this year and you maintain him for another year moving forward. I hope that's not the case. I hope that the Flames get a boatload of picks for number 91. What are your thoughts about that, Anand? What would you say are the, if it is a retool rather than a rebuild, what are the tools that you're keeping around if you're Craig Conroy?
Okay. I'm going to trade away Anderson for sure. I know that's inevitable coming soon. Kadri, if he wants to win another Stanley Cup or wants to be a winning team, sure. Blake Coleman's name has been thrown around the hats, but I mean, he might prefer to stay just because he has a family. He has a 4th child coming, so if you're to moving him, you move him sooner than later. And I know Backlund is going to be here, retire as a Flame. Probably you keep who?
You probably have to keep Uyghur.
Yeah, Uyghur is kind of our second option captain kind of thing. But the way this season, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, Uyghur you might want to keep. Kevin Ball you can keep, of course. Morgan Frost you can keep. Just because of that until you can fill the void of a center, you can keep Morgan Frost.
Yeah, until you can get an actual first overall center, because I like Morgan Frost's game. Is he a number 1 center in the NHL? Undeniably no.
Yeah.
But yeah, there
Dustin
are
Wolf you're keeping.
yeah. But to kind of put a bow on this, like we
Yeah.
have some players who have skill, but it is still more on the rebuild than a retool, in my opinion, versus Don Maloney. However, Don Maloney's opinion matters a lot more than either of ours does. And here's the kind of the one I wanted to. I'll mention this one before Tokay, before we go into our last one. Tokay number 1 saying, I want the Flames to move out so many players that Jake Bean has to wear a letter. Well, because obviously Tokay and I have had the conversation that the Bean family has dirt on Murray Edwards, so he will not be traded forever and ever. Amen. I don't think we'll quite ever get to that point where Jake Bean is wearing a letter for this squad. At some point, I just say, no, let's just staple CAAA all to Dustin Wolf's chest before we go giving Jake Bean a letter.
Yeah, you can maybe bring Brucevic into the conversation.
Yeah, no, Hunter Brustevich, yeah. Hunter Brustevich deserves to be an assistant captain more than Jake Bean if this is the future we're living in.
Or even Matt Gredin at some point. Or, yeah, give it to them before Jake Bean.
Bring Brent. Is it Brent Sutter that's the coach of the Wranglers? Yes, Brent Sutter. Bring him out of retirement. Give him a letter before we give Jake Bean a letter. But here we'll go off the air on a couple of Matt C comments. Start with Cooley is still number 1 in the league for goals against average and save percentage. Maybe that gives a little bit more credence to maybe needing to split the net a little bit more than even we expected. Knowing Dustin Wolf's numbers aren't bad, but hey, if he's truly the hottest hand in the NHL, got to give him a little bit more game action. But I think we'll end with this. I honestly don't think the Flames management has any plans to move Kadri or Coleman this year. They'll move Anderson just because they have to, with his being an expiring contract. But that will be it. If the Flames are worried more about eating contract or holding back players because they are signed for next year, I think that may be the biggest indication that management has said, you know what? This core isn't getting us to the playoffs, and they're not going to get us to the playoffs again next year. That might be the biggest indication that they finally bought into the rebuild. Because to take something else that was said by Don Maloney, we don't trade players, the players sometimes trade players. Or something along those lines. About how this is a player-driven decision. And if this core truly is something that this team believes in, like Murray Edward likes this core, maybe that is the biggest statement of saying, we'll keep this core around just because it will be the team that allows us, the core that allows us to draft as high as we can.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think on that note, let's go celebrate for the last little bit of tonight. We got a little bit of a stretch before the next game. Got to wait all the way till Saturday, where the Stars come in with a lovely, lovely 8 p.m. face-off. So that means I'm going to be starting at 10:15, if not later, folks. So that'll be a...
I'll probably done the Western Canada Showdown tournament by then, and if I'm back in home time, Conrad, I'll join you. I'll see what I can do.
Well, so it might be both of us, but we'll see.
If not, I'll be back next week.
Yeah, and then we also have the Canucks on Sunday, and unavailable for that one. But we will likely have Nolan from the Calgary Inclusive Hockey Association on. Knock on wood. Hopefully those times work out. For myself and Anand and the rest of the Game Over crew, thank you so much for spending your Wednesday night with us. The Flames win. Final score 6-2 over the Sabres. Where's my outro on this one? There we go.